Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you tonight for this album review. I think this is going to be the only album I'm interested in listening to. I think the Mars Volta album was another one I was going to check out, but I don't know if I want to, is the big question. Because I don't hate their sound, but they're not my cup of tea of music. They're not terrible. The Mars Volta is not a terrible band, but it's just they're an acquired taste for some listeners. So this is for the Mark Morton album, Without the Pain. The guitarist from Lamb of God doing a solo project for the second go around for his sophomore album. So I'm going to discuss what I listened to for this 40.5 minute record that consists of 11 songs and let you know my thoughts on Mark Morton's sophomore record, Without the Pain. So let's dive into this album review now. It's been 6 years since the last record, Anesthetic. I had to research it again because it's been a while since I've heard the name Mark Morton pop up on albums that come out during the year of whichever year it is for the 2020s. The only thing he released was Ether, so it's been 5, 6 years since he's actually put out a release. And from what I've listened to, the opening track Hell and Back featuring Jaron Johnston actually was a pretty good song. Probably one of my favorite tracks on the record. It took a little bit to grow on me, basically. I wasn't sure if I was gonna get used to this track per se, but it was a grower. And it wasn't a bad track from what I listened to. I think the production's pretty strong. Mark Morton's guitar work in it is pretty strong. And Sharon Johnston's singing when the chorus kicks in, that's the highlight of the track that I really enjoyed. So this is a 5 out of 5. Brother featuring Corey Jinx is a 4.75 out of 5. Pretty good song, very laid back. Pretty much most of this album is very laid back. It's very melodic. Much more melodic than the last record, Anesthetic, which had some pretty strong tracks on there. It wasn't one of my favorite records, but it was a good record. But overall, 4.75 out of 5 for Brother featuring Corey Jinks. Not a terrible track. Without the Pain featuring Matt James was a pretty strong track too. I enjoyed the title track to this record, which is the album's name, Without the Pain. And a track on here is a self-titled track, so it's pretty strong for how it sounds. And overall, I think Mark Morton's guitar work is pretty amazing in this track, so really dug this track, 5 out of 5. Kite String featuring Travis Denning is going to be a 4.25 out of 5. I don't necessarily hate this track, it's just above decent, in its own way. I would have given it a higher rating, but probably a 4.5 out of 5 to be a little bit more fair. It's a good song. I thought I was going to be giving it a 4.25 out of 5. I guess I decided, you know what? I thought it'd be a little nice and bump it up a little by 0.25 or whatever of a rating. So it's not the worst track, but it's a good track for how it sounds in its own way. Travis Denning does have some hit or miss vocals, but excuse me, honey. For the most part, I think Kite String had something going for it, so good track in its own way. Now we get to the next track, which is Come December, featuring Charlie Starr and Jason Isbell. Good track in its own way. It is a little more melodic too. Most of these tracks are very mellow than the last record. Anesthetic and Ether were probably the heaviest that he's put out. Good albums, but they had some moments where there was hit or miss production and mixing. So I am so sorry about my yawning in this video. Most of the day it's just been very dull. It wasn't terrible, but it was just one of those bleak Thursdays. So, Come December is a good track. Charlie Starr and Jason Isbell did pretty good for the most part. I wasn't sure which one was singing, but overall, the singing in it was solid for the most part, and Mark Morton's guitar work was quite outstanding. 4.5 out of 5. Down No More, featuring Nikki Jane, or Nikki Lane, I meant to say. I thought it was Jane, but it's Nikki Lane. Good track from what I listened to. I do dig Nikki's Lane's vocals in most of it. Sounds a little more southern twang in a way, like a more country rock kind of track. And it's fine and all, but I don't know if it's my kind of style for how music wise, but it's overall alright. 4.5 out of 5. Dust featuring Cody Jinks returning again as another featured artist on another track on this album. And Grace Bowers. Good track. I do dig how it sounds overall. So I really dug the vocals in this track, and overall execution wise, it did good in its own way. So this is a 4.5 out of 5. Forever in the Light featuring Tyler Bryant is a good track too in its own way. Quite a bit of these got some solid ratings. So overall, it's going to get a 4.5 out of 5 for Forever in the Light. Good track, just not something I'm going to be returning to too much, but it's fine for what it is. And give me a second, I got to pause the video. Sorry about that, guys. Had to assist my mom with something real quick. So, yeah, Forever in the Light featuring Tyler Bryant is a 4.5 out of 5. Nocturnal Sun featuring Troy Sanders and Jared James was a pretty good song in its own way. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's a highlight on the record for sure. It has some good moments with the drumming and guitar work and the singing from Jared James or whoever's singing on this track. It did sound pretty good for the most part, so I really dug this track. 4.75 out of 5. And Mark Morton's guitar work in it's pretty solid. So The Needle and the Spoon, I guess it's a track about heroin addicts, someone that was struggling with a heroin addiction. Featuring Neil Fallon. It's not a terrible track, but it's kind of weird when he sings with the needle and the spoon lyric. It just comes off cringy with how he sings it, Neil Fallon. And I don't know if I can get on board with this one. It's kind of a 4.25 out of 5 for me on this track. Just a little above average. And then finally we get to the closing track, Home, featuring Travis Denning again from the 4th track on this record, Kite String. Good track. It's a good way to end the record in its more melodic tone. And most of this record was very melodic for the most part. So it wasn't it was mostly a hard rock, melodic rock album. So it was more mellow than anesthetic, to be honest. So honestly, this is a 4.5 out of 5. Good track. It's a good way to end the record, but most of the tracks on here are not going to be something I'll be returning to. So overall, production, mixing, and execution-wise, I think Mark Morton's new record, Without the Pain album, it's an average record. I don't necessarily hate this album. It's not bad, but I do have my critiques with some of the tracks. Mostly with Needle and Spoon, a few of the 4.5 out of 5 songs, a little bit of the 4.75 out of 5 tracks, but they're pretty good in their own way. Just have a little critique with those, with certain moments in the song of its production and mixing. But overall, structure-wise, I think this record stayed on board in its own way, but I think it's an average record in its own way. So if I were to give Mark Morton's new record Without the Pain a score, I'm feeling a light 7.5 out of 10. It's an average album. I guess check it out, see what you think of it for yourself. It's not going to be up everyone's cup of tea. It'll be some people's cup of tea, and other people will just be like, okay, it's kind of, it's good, but it's not the best. So 7.5 out of 10 for Mark Morton Without the Pain. Thanks for watching this album review tonight.